Good morning. Welcome to the Contemporary Issue Sunday School class. We are glad to have you here, and we're glad to have our friend Ron Funing today to talk about empathy. And I feel for Ron having to present this. It must be difficult to explain such a topic, but he will do a wonderful job today. Yes, and with that, we have our usual announcement. Zoomers, thank you for being with us. Please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen when you're not speaking. And we are recording this for future playback. And what else do we have? Alice has something.
There was a package left Tuesday night, a gift. I don't know if somebody just didn't want it or they forgot.
Oh, okay.
But I've got it out here.
What is it?
By my,
Yeah, it
it's a
depends.
full plate, a Christmas Santa plates. So if you came back home and don't have your secret Santa, otherwise I'm gonna keep it.
Well, you should.
Were there any cookies? There weren't any cookies on it.
Oh, she's talking about our class Christmas party, and thank you, Alice, for all your work on that. It was fun. And it was 50. We had about 55 people there, and it was very fun time. Vicky's with a friend today from out of town. What else was I gonna say? That, and let's see. Frank has a potluck coming up. If Frank is here, I don't see Frank here at the moment, but that's all right. He enjoys having folks over this Friday night for those who want to come. And there's an Advent class going on, wanted to tell you. Is anybody going to the 11:45 Advent class with Rev Jerry that he's had last couple Sundays? It's also on Zoom. You would like to sign up for that. Okay, any other announcements?
Oh, Ron and I have our 52nd wedding anniversary tomorrow. We still like each other.
That helps a lot. Congratulations. Okay. With that, Ron, thank you for talking about empathy. I wanted to throw out a few questions, just for thoughts about empathy that I wondered. Empathy, how does it differ from sympathy? Are they the same thing? Would empathy should it lead to kindness? Is that the goal of us having empathy? Should we be acting kindly toward people that we have empathy for? Can you teach empathy to children and adults?
We'll be talking about that.
And politicians?
For a second.
These may be questions that you all have too. And is empathy a result of nature or nurture? Our brain chemistry, the size of our amygdala, or our upbringing and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll touch on all those.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's get up the first slide. Also, I want to mention some of the resources. Changing the subject just a little bit, the movie Nuremberg is out in the theaters right now. And this is the book that is explicitly mentioned on the closing credits of that movie. And it just arrived yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to dig into it, but I'll pass that around. Also, I'm always touting this book. I think it's one of the best in my library, Behave. And I actually found it for the first time out there a couple of years ago in our church book alcove. And this is an excellent reference that deals with both the physical biology and the moral and mental processes of us as humans. So it deals with all of the major attributes, fear, love, and I highly recommend it. It's very readable and enlightening. I think everybody in the human race ought to be more aware of both biology, the genetics, and the emotions that drive our our being who we are. Okay, also, for those who like biblical readings, particularly around this Christmas time of Advent, I recommend A Harmony of the Gospels. This takes the four Gospels, puts them in the best chronological order that we can find, but puts them side by side. In other words, where certain biblical and gospel events occur and are discussed in multiple Gospels, they line them up, as you can see. So you can read the account, if the account's covered in all four of the Gospels, you can look side by side and you can read kind of the whole story put together and integrated together. So this, I think, is one of the, I like this better than the Gospels as standalone entities. So I will,
Few variations, so in the stories.
yeah, so I'll even pass that around. It doesn't matter which, that's probably, yeah, it's a good translation. Okay, so let's get our first slide up. And the first slide has a picture of the hand of an infant, a relative newborn. And instinctively, when we're born, we reach and we start grabbing for things. They say when a baby's fingers instinctively cling, it's clinging to start to make connections through touch and feel, and we have a need to connect. And I always mention a song that I love. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. That was put into rock song form by the Hollies around 1968-ish, somewhere around in there. And that's a great song. I've always enjoyed that. Okay, another good book that I meant to bring today, but it's called Born for Love. It's a bestseller from about 15 years ago. And the small print above Born to Love is why empathy is essential and endangered. Empathy, compassion underlies the qualities that make society work: trust, altruism, collaboration, love, charity. All these are undergirded by empathy. You either have them or they're weaker than you would hope. Difficulties related to empathy are key factors in social problems like war, crime, racism, mental illness. Show me somebody that's very weak on empathy, and they're probably not going to make a very good contribution to mankind. And I have to even question their spiritual and religious undergirding. Show me a religion or a faith, a person says, I'm a person of great faith, if they have no empathy. I've got a real question whether it's got much depth to it.
RFK Jr.
Right. They've found that even our physical health from things like heart attacks is very much affected by our human connections. Human connections are very dependent upon having some empathy. There's a picture I love, a good old Maine Coon cat being cuddled by her owner. Okay. All right. Well, we can think of people that don't have much empathy. And here's one of the best examples I know. In fact, they said on Putin, he's as cold as a lizard. Everybody that's talked to him has said he's got all the attributes of somebody that just doesn't give a hang about anybody or anything except himself. And of course, he put his data into one of the dating sites and they matched him up with that left picture.
No.
Okay. So, all righty. And a saying that there's a gentleman who's running for the Texas Senate, and he made the statement, Christian nationalists walk around with a mouthful of scripture and a heart full of hate. Don't tell me what you believe. Show me how you treat other people, and I'll tell you what you believe.
Whoa.
All right. Breaking down empathy into its constituent elements. They say there's really three areas we need to look at. First is your cognitive empathy. That means just understanding what others are thinking. I know people with certain autisms, like Asperger's, cannot sense how they're being perceived by others. They badly misread. And all of us have some weaknesses. Sometimes we go in and we misread somebody's feelings. We don't realize we're hurting somebody's feelings or offending them. But that's the first stage. The next one is getting into adding emotion to it, where you have the mental understanding of what the other person is going through, but you start feeling it. This means you're really starting to kick into a potential social connection when you do this. And then there's empathetic concern, where you not only understand it and you feel it, but you want to make them feel better. You want to take action. You want to do something. And of course, there's sometimes you can do that. Other times there's things that are out of your control and you're not able to give comfort. If someone's lying in a hospital bed and is unconscious, you could you can pray for them and pray that they won't get their language mixed up like I just did. But you can't, and you can maybe hold their hand and whatever, but there's not too much you can do other than be at their side. All right. I love that song, by the way, of Gordon Lightfoot's "If You Could Read My Mind." That's a starting step of empathy. There was a very famous social scientist who wrote a classic book on the 20th century. And the book is titled The Origins of Totalitarianism. And this book, again, I just got it ordered and arrived, and I need to do some reading. But Hannah apparently is very famous, and she was well versed in looking at what happened in the 20th century in terms of the rise of Hitler and totalitarian regimes. Wrote this book. And one of her quotes is, "The death of human empathy is one of the earliest and most telling signs of a culture about to fall into barbarism." Interesting. That's her book. So we'll pass that one around too. All right. Next slide. All right. Unfortunately, in very recent political environs here in the last couple of years, one famous activist, who I'll leave you to identify, made this statement: "I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is made up, a new age term, and it does a lot of damage."
That's Charlie Kirk, the young guy that was shot.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, in some of these environs where even some religion is coming in to some of these political statements, there's people out there saying empathy is bad.
Yeah.
It's weakness, it's wokeness, it's not good, you don't want it. So I don't think I've ever heard of a greater perversion of Christianity than a statement like this.
So what?
Ron?
What's the other side of it?
Indifference. Yeah,
Well,
you don't care.
All about me.
Right.
well, I'll play the devil's advocate on that for just a second, if I could. Elon Musk, I know, said he thought excessive empathy was hurting America by letting in too many illegal immigrants and things, and that tough love was necessary, but was still compassionate toward other people. I'm just throwing out the other side of the
I
coin.
strongly agree with that, Steve.
Okay,
Thank you.
some people do.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We've got the microphones on each side of the room there and back by Steve. If we want to pass around too. But I just throw that out, Ron, as the way that others define it.
Good point.
That surprises me.
The what again?
That
Oh, no.
surprises me
No,
if he said that.
no. That's
That's
him.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of the things you said, there's a lot more surprises to be had. Okay, Nick, go ahead.
also Texas is requiring that all high schools have his group come into the high schools.
Starting point. Yeah,
Starting point,
form a chapter, yeah,
right.
which is,
Every high school requires.
which is an incredible, requirement, yeah. Okay, next slide. There's the one we put up right at the beginning of class. Sorry, I'm not giving you the stable for the night. That would destroy your incentive to better yourselves. All right, there's a and the next one. And then one, this is something I pulled off the internet. And one gentleman said, I've mentioned this a couple of times before, but I have a fairly conservative lifelong Republican friend who is a pastor. He has occasionally worked with a Christian publishing company writing lesson plans, Vacation Bible School. This year he was brought on to do one of those and then quietly told, steer clear of anything dealing with the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is too woke. It's too inclusive. It's DEI. It's not what we want to have in our literature to fit in some of the churches. So that's an interesting observation. Next one down, there's a cartoon. I call it the revised Sermon on the Mount. Somalis, garbage. The meek, garbage. The poor, sick, and needy, garbage, garbage, garbage. That's the revised. Okay, now we swing around to a very progressive country where that instead of putting the 10 Commandments in schools, Denmark. Denmark requires every child age 16 to take a weekly empathy class that includes being kind to animals. And it's not undergirded by a specific religious or political faith. It is just basically saying, we want to teach our people to be better human beings. And so they have class. And since 1993, Denmark has taught empathy to children, resulting in the world's lowest bullying rates and highest kindness scores. So teaching empathy has proven to do a lot of good things. It's made their society richer and more wealthy in terms of social capital. Next one. Okay. It's been shown with empathetic individuals, they have better relationships. It's not too surprising. Relationship partners of people higher in dispositional empathy report being more satisfied with their relationships. The higher empathy individual feels better about the relationship, even if their partner is lower in empathy. Even if only one partner is high in empathy, the receiving partner still gets the emotional needs better met. So pick a spouse that gets high in empathy. All right. And of course, empathy is far more abundant in certain professions. I'm a little bit prejudiced toward nurses since my daughter is one, but generally, you're going to find in that profession a lot more empathetic people. You go into Kaiser Permanente and you're going to find a lot more kind and caring people than you will in Joe's Mechanic Garage, probably. You know, and nothing wrong with some wonderful mechanics out there, but generally you find that the teaching profession, the doctors, the nurses, the therapists, the psychologists, the people-oriented service workers, no surprise, tend to be stronger in empathy. And they draw that element. Whereas the less empathetic people, and I'm not knocking people that go into want to be a Navy SEAL or something, but it's just the way it is. Certain professions draw the high empathy people. And that certainly includes generally pastors and people in the theological and church environment.
Would hope so.
Yeah, yeah. And of course it pays off. The high empathy people have lower stress, lower anxiety, less hopelessness, lower depression, and better psychological indicators of stress regulations. And genetics, they say the ability to read emotions is more heritable. It's more of a genetic trait than to read what they are thinking. And of course, how many on that prior slide there, how many recognize that middle bubble? Who is that and what movie is it from? Here's your,
The future doc.
that's Doc, and he's got on that, he's invented a new helmet that he's trying on Marty to see if he can read his mind. Okay, next one. Okay, now comes, how about parenting? We talked about genetic influence on your empathy level, and there is a genetic component, absolutely. The best family environment for empathy is found to be an environment that satisfies the child's emotional needs. And an environment that discourages excessive self-concern and self-centeredness builds a better child. And I don't have all the answers on how to make kids more empathetic, but I think you do it by example. Certainly you can see it in the way people treat animals. Show me a kid that hugs their beagle or their kitty cat or whatever, and it usually is a sign their empathy is a little stronger than a child who pushes animals away.
Or they have the member who shoots their dog because of its age. You know who that is?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no. That was definitely a mistake.
Also, it says you hopefully have a parental modeling that shows emotional sensitivity and responsiveness. Responsiveness means maybe if your teenage son or daughter comes in and they look troubled, you at least try to communicate with them. You don't push them off and say, "Oh, grow up and get over it." You actually try to listen to them, and I don't think any of us who are parents did a perfect job. Nobody does, but hopefully we didn't do as poorly as we might have. Fortunately, it is possible to expand our empathy as we get older. We saw that in the movie A Christmas Carol, where it happened in one night. I don't think it usually happens that way, but at least it does. They've definitely shown you can change. You don't have to be the old grouch that all the kids talk about in the neighborhood as, old man Ebenezer who yells at all the kids on the neighborhood. In my neighborhood in Cincinnati, Ohio, there was a really good family at our high school called the Rotans. And the one kid, Bill, made it into the minor leagues and almost made the majors. But his younger brother was cutting across the lawn of another neighbor to get to school, to take the shortcut. And the guy got so mad at him that he shot and killed them. Yeah, so now granted, the kid obviously wasn't respecting the person's lawn, but it certainly shows the people that say, you do that, you scratch my car and I'll kill you,
Touching my truck.
Yeah, the empathy isn't there.
How was that homeowner punished?
I don't know the full, they certainly were taken to court, but I don't know what the final disposition was. All I know is there was no getting his younger brother back for that horrific act. Okay, but there is hope for all of us that we can change, we can grow. Doing in class on empathy, I have to say, I've got a ways to go, not where I'd like to be. And but hopefully that's a good sign if you can say, well, what can I do to grow my empathy, improve my empathy, and be a better person.
Ron?
Yeah.
Just a quick observation, lately, the Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene talking
Yeah.
about people that have changed. She was on 60 Minutes a couple weeks ago and said that I have empathy for the Epstein victims, and that's what caused me to change.
Wow.
And I've seen now how I've contributed to the toxic political environment, and I'm sorry for that.
Wow.
And so that's the way she phrased it, you know, on 60 Minutes TV show. And so it sounded like genuine empathy, which we don't hear very much
Mhm.
lately. So,
Especially in politics.
especially in politics, right? Yeah, yeah. So, but we'll see how long that goes on. too.
Yeah.
She's resigned from Congress.
Right.
Mm.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, the other thing was Trump took her into that room and threatened her.
Yes.
And then she started getting death threats for her and her.
It all contributed to that, but just her language saying I have empathy and I'm sorry for contributing to the toxic culture
Oh.
was different.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I think all of us can look back over our lives, particularly look at elementary school, junior high, senior high. And of course, none of us had fully developed morality and adult or moral codes developed in our early childhood. And I think all of us can look back on life and have at least some regrets over, I wish I wouldn't have said this to so-and-so, or I wish I wouldn't have ignored this. And even in our adult life, of course, we will look back and say, I have some regrets in life of how I interacted with other people. I should have done better in certain situations. Okay. Well, how did empathy evolve? It's important because it helps ensure ensure your offspring survive. And so in the animal kingdom, we see it very strongly. It helps sustain mutual assistance, which is required for both individual and group survival. We know the bonobos, which are very close to the chimps in the family tree, are a little higher than chimpanzees in terms of moral development. And they say the bonobos will share food when chimps won't. So the bonobos are even higher up on the hierarchy. And of course, we're all familiar with some of the mother bears and other animals that will literally go to no ends to protect their young and look over them. There was a picture on Facebook this morning, and I don't think it was not AI generated from what I'm told, of a cougar who spotted a cute little kitty cat kitten and was kind of nuzzling it up to it. And they had photographs. The cougar was sensing that, thinking that that kitten was its offspring and was kind of giving it loving nurtures and, you know, a lick and all that kind of stuff. And so it's an important factor to have in your species to survive. Sure, your species doesn't go extinct. Okay, next one down. Your pain is my pain. Again, in the animal kingdom, I think I've told this story before. They found, they spotted one case where there was a little baby elephant who had gotten separated from his or her herd and was kind of caught in this watery quicksand area. And another tribe of elephants came by and they said they photographed him. They spent a full hour extracting that other little one out of the quicksand and getting him, her, pulled to safety and taken care of. And it showed that there is empathy in that species. There's also, you've probably read stories of dolphins showing empathy, even helping humans, rescuing them and helping them in desperate situations. And probably most of us can tell stories about a really great pet they had, be it a cat, a dog, that definitely showed the trait of empathy. They say a mother hen shows empathetic distress when the chicks experience even mild discomfort. So mother hen really sensitizes, tries to look after her chicks. Next one. Okay, looking into the brain. Again, that book Behave talks about it. All roads for empathy pass through the anterior cingulate cortex. That's that pink banana shaped area in the brain. And it is important because it is a a data collection center. It takes the interior information, that is information from your body, from all the different nervous centers. It tells you whether your stomach is hurting, whether your shoulder is aching, your heart is racing, and it puts all that data into the ACC area. But it also takes notice of other information, and it starts mixing that data with emotional responses from your primitive brain area, the amygdala. It also takes particularly notice of unexpected information. In that picture, there's a mountain lion. It's almost impossible to see. Back it off. It's go back again because
Punch your lights out.
but
Sorry.
gotta go back. But if you look carefully at the picture, we don't want to spend too much time on it. There it is, 18. And yeah, if you look at that picture carefully, on the left side, between those two rods, there's a face sticking up of a mountain lion.
Oh.
Yeah, see, you can barely see that face. I mean, it's really hard to see. You could practically stumble on that guy or gal and not see him or, okay. Next slide. Okay. Your ACC also looks at not only real data. When I say real data, the nervous system puts real pain signals, or your stomach muscles being tight. That's real data, but it also senses social and emotional pain. And those social emotional pains often come from anxiety. You're worrying about something, disgust, embarrassment. Those are pains that are abstracted and created by your brain, but they aren't nervous signals coming in directly. So your ACC does get involved in working in that abstract information as well as real nervous system inputs. The ACC is central to learning fear and conditioned avoidance by observation alone. As Yogi Berra quoted, you can observe a lot by just watching. So we learn a lot of things in life. We see some painful and terrible things that create a powerful impression upon us without having experienced it ourselves. All right, empathy and the amygdala. The amygdala is the primitive part of the brain. It's more of like a couple little walnut-shaped parts in the center of the brain. But they have found in studying the brain, it's more difficult to generate empathy for someone who is different or unappealing. In other words, the more similar they are to us, the more easier it is to generate sympathy. And that means,
Sympathy or empathy?
I'm sorry,
Sympathy or empathy?
probably both. I think we could spend the session on trying to decide how those two differ on a Venn diagram. But a hospital chaplain said that she had to make sure she didn't preferentially visit, she called them the Yavis patients. Some of the patients that were young, attractive, verbal, intelligent, and social. It's easier to want to go visit a popular person that is an open and smiling personality. And it's more difficult to visit someone who is not as physically attractive and not as appealing. And that's the same thing with the generation of empathy. We can feel more sorry for a cute little puppy dog than we can for something that isn't very cute. Maybe you know, porcupine or something. I don't know. All righty. Okay, no surprise here. You ask about genetics. Hands down, and this isn't every woman or every man, but the female brain is predominantly hardwired for empathy. Women are better at relationships and emotions. Sorry, guys, we lose it. We're whooped. We just don't match up. Male brain is hardwired for understanding and building systems, and the men are generally better at analytical and mechanical tasks. But when it comes to empathy, the ladies got us beat, hands down. They do say, however, it's more important not how much empathy you were born with genetically, but the extent to which you're willing to develop it. So that's interesting to know. We reach back in the past. Who is that on the lower
Knows
picture?
best.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the more popular TV shows. And of course, his television persona was very popular because he was a very outgoing and compassionate guy. Okay. Next one. They say empathy also has some dangers to it. It can be bad in terms of empathy. If we feel really bad, we go home with knots in our stomach, we feel terrible. But we work through it and we don't do anything when we could do something. It's one thing to say, I can't correct this situation. But it's bad if the empathy stops with just their feeling and just saying, I want to deal with the emotion within myself, but I don't want to take it to the action phase to help the other person who is hurting. The peril of empathy is it can make us feel good, which can stop us short of doing anything to help. So we want to make sure it doesn't get stuck in our own brains. Okay. Can you change empathy level? Yes. They had two groups listen to a recording of a young woman in distress because of her parents' death in an auto accident. Group one was asked to focus on the facts of the recording, and the other group was asked to imagine the experiences and feelings the woman was going through. And the person that concentrated on understanding the feelings was generated more empathy. Next slide. Okay. And of course, with following the examples of Denmark, many education experts believe teaching empathy skills is as important as reading, writing, and math. It's a cornerstone of emotional intelligence. And many feel that teaching empathy in churches is more important than doctrine. If you think about it, you say, yeah, that's probably right. And then, of course, we had the handout on the Nuremberg quote, the psychiatrist saying the one thing he saw across all the people on trial was that general coldness and lack of empathy for fellow human beings. All right. Blockades to empathy, prejudice, authority. One of the greatest obstacles in humans is people saying, well, I was just following orders. And then, of course, the distance, which remember, distance being physical and psychological. You say, well, they're not part of my race, my religion. They don't go to my church. And those can be diminishers. Next one. I think we've mentioned before how Schindler, you've heard the movie Schindler's List. He was credited with saving at least the lives of 1,100 Jews from the Holocaust. They said what changed him, he said he wasn't a super guy. I mean, he had a taste for cognac and voluptuous secretaries. He was a Nazi party member. He was a lapsed Catholic. But he got to know his Jewish accountant, Itzhak Stern, and then he started to get to know the workers in his Jewish factory. And he was out with this Jewish accountant horseback riding, and they saw a roundup of Jews occurring just a half mile away. They witnessed the violence of it. It was like a violent ice raid, shall we call it. But it changed his heart. It helped him develop empathy for the Jewish people when he saw what they were going through. And one other example, I showed this one before, Harriet Beecher Stowe, who authored Uncle Tom's Cabin. Her beautiful little boy, Charlie, died at age 1.5 during a cholera outbreak in Cincinnati that killed 9,000 people. Her extreme grief, she said, provided her insight into the pain slave mothers were feeling when they were separated from their children, often on auction blocks. So it helped her develop empathy to a great degree, and of course, author the classic Uncle Tom's Cabin. All right. Habits of highly empathetic people. Switch on your brain. Make the imaginative leap. Think of time when you really tried to step into somebody else's shoes. Have you ever tried to really say, gee, how is my brother really feeling about this condition or situation?
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
If somebody grows up in a family with parents that aren't, overly loving, demonstrative or whatever, do you think that's going to affect the children's sense of empathy and as they grow up and, show or don't show empathy to people around them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, a classic case is Donald Trump. They say his parents were very cold to him. His father said never apologize. So both of the parents, the biographies say, modeled that for Donald Trump.
Next one, and we're going to get into full discussion then. They say one thing we can do is practice the art of conversation. Try to talk more to the people. Yeah. Try to talk things through. What's the biggest source of tension or misunderstanding in your family life? How could you initiate a conversation to better understand each other? Travel in your armchair. Sometimes films, novels, or other artwork can expand your empathy. I think Rick Steves' adventures often help us better understand people of other places, how they're thinking and feeling, and to realize we're not the only people in the world.
I think last week's thing about museums, that they said, that's what I see as a great value of museums, is you see all these aspects of the different kinds of humans and cultures and
Yeah.
artwork and everything,
Mhm.
and you recognize, they're like, you pick out things that are like me.
I've heard men and women that have gone into the armed services say that. I heard one guy say, I grew up in a small southern town, and then they went into the army, and I had to suddenly meet a whole bunch of people from all over the country of different, and it helped them expand their views of others. Finally, inspire a revolution. Think of a social or political cause that you really care about. How could you call on empathy to get more people activated? What change can you make in your life to deepen your empathetic connection with the natural world? Hiking and getting out there in nature, working your garden, help you expand your view. And of course, I love this saying there in the upper left corner. It showed up on a Methodist church marquee. Live your life so that the preacher won't have to lie at your funeral. And then expanding on Donald Trump, his niece Mary said, there was no upside to being part of the family. These were cruel, selfish people who didn't understand love, who don't have compassion or empathy. I consider myself extremely lucky that I'm not part of the family at all. So that's okay. All right, let's get the conversation going. Thoughts and ideas.
Sharon, would you bring the microphone forward, please? And Steve, would you grab that one for that side and bring it on over here to Christine? Thank you, Sharon.
It's here.
Thank you for having empathy for that. We appreciate it.
I just wanted to pick up on what Steve said about maybe having too much empathy. Sometimes I think that can be used as an excuse to be cruel or to be discriminatory. I understand the balance, that people can be taken advantage of. And my father was an example, he was a Methodist minister, one of the most authentic Christians that I ever knew. And he was always giving, and so anybody who was in need would come to the town, they'd say, talk to Frank Little, he would be the one to go to, but he wasn't taken advantage of, people would come like a family and their kids would be in the car and they would need money, and it was obvious maybe there was alcoholism involved. And rather than give money, which is what they want, he said, what do you need? He said, well, our kids need shoes, food. He said, okay, we're gonna go to the store and get some shoes. We're gonna go to the grocery store. So he never gave money to people who might take advantage of empathy, but he met their need, and he became, people knew that that was Frank Little was going to get you some help, some genuine help.
Well,
Very good.
Great story.
Very good. We got about 10 minutes left. I want to offer our Zoomers a chance to comment without feeling like they're interrupting us. If you have anything, just jump on in whenever you do. Just say that you got a comment. Okay, what do you think? Gene, can we pass the microphone over to Gene, please?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ron. Again, stimulating our thinking here. I'm not an apologist for the other side, but as Steve was attempting to do a devil's advocate, I think one of the biggest challenges as far as empathy action is with respect to the religious divide or the our evangelical friends, that would include the Wesley Fellowship and so forth. How do we do with our empathy with respect to the other side as far as the religious spiritual conundrum that we're facing? So, secondly, that's the first question. Secondly, I think the distinctions that you're making between compassion and empathy and sympathy. Last night, we had a horrendous shooting at Brown University, and one prominent individual said, all we can do now is offer our prayers. Sympathy.
Fake sympathy.
We had one very successful, since you've used political examples there, Ron, one prominent political figure that we've known was famous for saying, I feel your pain. Okay, that is probably empathy.
Was that Bill Clinton?
Okay.
That's okay. Bill Clinton.
The third Bishop Tutu, clergy as well as an activist, used the term compassion. In my limited reading of spiritual thinkers, for the most part, they use the word compassion because compassion is a more proactive, active thing. The toxic empathy that their books out, as you know, today on that very topic, toxic empathy, is where you intellectualize and you overact. The emphasis is on toxic. People who are standing up for a certain moral order, even though we might disagree with their methodology, say that it's very easy to intellectualize and become empathetic and stop there and feel good. Hey, I'm a little better than the other guy. And that's prone for, certainly for people who try intellectualizing situations as being the way to achieve enlightenment. So we have these paradoxes at work, but compassion seems to be on the spiritual end of things, the more prominent emphasis. If you want to feel something, but then you do something, it's more activist as opposed to just being empathetic. You address some of that, but I think those distinctions need to remain.
If I can, I want to ask our cultural professor, anthropology professor.
Sorry, I had to,
That's all right.
the call, you'll be interested, the call that I was just on, I was on a conference call.
Yes.
Pardon for the interruption. So let's say this, it was related ironically to this, and to what we can do around food security with greater empathy to help others who are struggling, such as with the SNAP issue.
Hmm.
Isn't that something?
Interesting.
It just
Yes.
complemented what Ron has been beautifully sharing with us.
But I want to ask you, Peter,
That's all.
don't, no, good, if you don't
Well, I
mind.
missed the rest of the last 15 minutes because of my conference call. So.
Just, but you don't need to have been here for my question. Just my question is, in other cultures, is empathy valued highly like we try to here in America?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
okay. How do they show that?
Not always verbally,
Okay,
but certainly behaviorally.
okay, okay.
Often in action,
Yes,
usually in action. Yeah. But thanks for asking.
sure.
So, but anyway, ironically, that conference call
Yeah,
touched upon this exact topic.
yes,
And how does it play out as we wrestle with food and those that don't have enough?
yeah. Very good, very good. Okay. Chris.
Speaking of food, I noticed this other handout that you gave us
Yeah.
about USAID. And I was wondering, I guess I was disappointed that there was not more of an outrage among Americans about what was happening. I mean, food, and then when we heard that there was stockpiles of food that was rather than give it, it's already been paid for. It's already been allocated, and it was left to rot rather than give it to the people. That just really concerned me, and it concerned me more that the media and no one else really seemed that concerned about it. I mean, the fact that we just wiped out our whole foreign aid program, which is benefit to us too, for soft power, why that wasn't more of a concern. And of course, I didn't do anything about it necessarily. I, gave to my food bank, but I'm just wondering what was it about our country or our culture that didn't make us more concerned about that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do I have a microphone, please? Thank you. Thank you. Something that I'm personally struggling with and in a lot of ways about empathy, that I'm feeling okay about what I'm doing or not doing, and I also feel crummy about myself. And here's what it is. It's a college friend. I've been out of college for 30-something years or whatever. And he was a good buddy to all of us while we were in school, and he's just been a jerk the rest of the time. No, he's just, he doesn't respond to anything. He's just impolite. He doesn't care. He has no caring for any of the rest of us. Well, I just found out, and this has gone through this extended group of people, his son was murdered in Chicago. And so then all the hosannas come out, and I have two daughters. If one of my daughters were murdered, the pain would be indescribable. I have a hard time. I understand intellectually why this is so awful, but I really don't give a shit. About him. And I know, well, maybe a lot of you say, oh, you jerk, Phil, or something like that. But it's something I'm really struggling with, because I remember how poorly, when Jamie and I went to Chicago and he had a party, and he just treated us like junk. And now his son has been killed. I'm not at all happy his son has been killed. It's awful. But I have a hard time summoning up empathy.
It's hard to have empathy for those who don't have empathy. Kind of ironic, isn't it, Steve? Ann, use the microphone, please.
Well, obviously, we're quite political in this room, and
Closer.
I've been a loyal liberal for many years, but I'm not anymore. I'm very sad to see us discuss this at a political level, and
Okay.
that's exactly what's happening here.
Okay.
But I do have great empathy, and I think, even Trump, he does have great empathy. It's just not broadcast because the Liberal Party is so controlling over the media.
Okay.
I know that to be true from a biography I've read about he and his mother, very empathetic couple in their practical life. But I think we need to be really careful about how far we go with the word empathy and sympathy. There's moments where I definitely have sympathy for a situation, but my heart always has empathy for people. So we need to be a little cautious on where we go with this, and all of it can be very temporary. You can change on a dime with your feelings, and probably Bill was a very empathetic man at one point, but he has reason to have changed, good reason to have changed. And he'll get back to where he belonged.
I certainly hope so, because I'm still
It
resting.
will happen.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
They have shown that our degree of empathy decreases if we feel the person is responsible for their demise. In other words, if the person has been a lifelong drug addict or alcoholic, we feel less empathy to them than someone who's a small child in a crib who's been afflicted with something terrible. So our empathy decreases as we see the person being more responsible for the bad situation they're in. The data does show that. And of course, there's limits. If all we did this morning was look at all the situations in the world and all the wrongs and all the things that we could do that we don't do, we could, we have to protect our own psyche to some extent. We need to limit our empathy a little bit so we don't just go mad with distress, whatever, about all the things in the world that aren't right and the suffering that is going on.
I have an example of what we all see every day. All the people begging at church corner. And I have a lot of change in my car, quarters that I use for my laundry. And sometimes I've given one of these people as much as $10. And I've had a lot of times people in the car go, "Oh, I never give to those people. I give to, you know." And it's always a struggle though, because that's in our face every day. And
You know, Ron, we might mention too, just the example of Jesus as someone who was extremely empathetic. Saw people, felt their pain, wept for them, modeled that action for us. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Carol.
Richard Rohr says in some of his books that the purpose of a Christian is to show the compassion of Christ to the world. And I try to remember that when you talk about seeing people and you see the signs that say giving money doesn't help. And I think, well, that's something you have.
Yeah. You know, and I want to follow up on Ann's comment too and say that we should feel empathy and compassion for those politicians that we disagree with. We shouldn't just criticize them as I did Trump here, but it's a good point. We should try and understand where they're coming from and that they are well-meaning people too in their own way.
Bless their
So.
heart.
Bless their heart.
bless their heart.
Yeah. That's my Mia Cole.
Sorry.
I haven't watched the Grinch movie. Does he have a change of heart at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Or you can take a somewhat sounds condescending word of Jesus. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Yes.
That's another way
Right.
Yeah,
dealing with the issue.
there you go. I'll have to remember that again. Yeah.
Good point.
Well, most of the time, people who are evil, we want to take that with empathy, they're not happy people. I mean, Trump's a good example. Trump is not happy. No, he will never be happy.
Well, we may or may not know that. Oh, we're about out of time. Zoomers, any comments from Zoom? Thank you for having you here. Lola, you said your hand up. You want to say
That
something?
is my, it's just one thing that makes me crazy. And that is there's a significant amount of empathy involved in wokeness. And so often, it seems to me, being woke is awakened, which is a good thing, but it is treated as weakness. That's my 2 bits.
become such a word and a issue in America today. Well, thank you, Ron, for a good presentation. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. See you next week. I'll
Thank
talk
you,
about
Ron. Bye.
this next week.
All right. Christina or?
Okay. So I'll go ahead and prepare that Mary Train for President's Day, like. 15th, is that?
Wonder if I really took the time to read it.
I just think it's.
I know.
That's a bit, oh, that's scary.
Yeah, but you,